Welcome to the Intuitive Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Rafferty, medical doctor, PhD, Reiki, and shaman intuitive healer. I'm here to bring you on a journey of holistic healing that explores the science of the physical body, combined with mental and emotional well-being, energetic and spiritual health. I am so excited that you will be joining us today because we are going to be exploring the topic or the theme of fear. So I really wanted to discuss this today because it's something I've personally journeyed with. I think it is literally one of the biggest limiting factors in our life, fear that we hold in the body. And it really costs the dreams of many. And what do I mean when I say that? Essentially, we become so fearful, we're afraid to take the next step. We become so fearful of outcomes that we can't predict that we actually decide not to pursue certain dreams or ambitions because the fear is too great for us to hold. And it's something that I see in nearly every client that comes through my door. And I really wanted to explore it today and see how we can identify what our greatest fears are, how we can process fear, what fear looks like, what different types of fear exist within us, and how we hold fear within the body. Now, several weeks ago, I journeyed with shame. And if you haven't listened to that episode of the podcast, I highly recommend you listen back to that because it also helps us to recognize these really core, big emotional themes that run throughout the body. Now, fear is often generally held within the root chakra. I've done an episode on the chakra system. If you're unfamiliar with the chakras, it might be good to have a little listen back at that because it basically gives us an overview of where we hold dense energies within the body and the types of mental and emotional trauma that's linked in with each of the energy centers. The root chakra is all to do with our tribe, our home life, our familial upbringing, generally life that was lived up until 7 years old. So within the womb space, during birth and delivery, and then those early pre-verbal years when we were actually just observing the world around us. What energy did we take on? Did we have parents that were very fearful? Perhaps you were the first child that was born and your mother and father had no idea what they were doing. And you were raised during those initial months of your life in the energy of fear about doing something wrong. Perhaps your labor and delivery was very traumatic and there was a lot of fear there around your well-being, the well-being of the mother that was birthing you. So you can see that actually we may actually experience fear during those very early stages of our life. And even in the womb space, if your mother experienced a lot of fear during pregnancy, there's an imprinting that's happening before we even reach the verbal stage of our life. And then obviously during those earlier years of our life, perhaps we lived in a space, in a home, in an environment in which there was a lot of fear around. Perhaps someone raised their voice an awful lot. Perhaps it wasn't safe to be physically present in that space that you grew up in. So you can see that the energetic imprint of fear starts early, and fear, again, like I discussed in previous episodes, it is an emotion. And what is an emotion? It's an energy in motion. It's an energy that wants to move through the body. And like I previously discussed, we love the high vibrational energies like joy and love and all of these gorgeous light ones that want to move through the body. We're quite happy to feel that throughout the body. But fear is dense. It's sticky. That has the feeling of binding. We don't like that feeling, so we bury it deep. Now, what's quite interesting is the definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by a perceived threat of danger, pain, or harm. And if you think back to when we were cavemen wandering around in the desert, this was a great response that triggered our sense of fight or flight. If there was a predator around or if there was danger there, let's say a lot of examples that are given generally now are that a lion presents itself and wants to chomp down on you. The fear arises in us. We then have an activation of our nervous system. Our sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive. We produce a lot of cortisol and adrenaline to get us going. We want to do a legger, you know? So fear had a great place back at that time because it provided us with the physiological responses we needed to escape the pending danger or the doom. But unfortunately, well, fortunately, I suppose more so, fortunately, we don't have lions just prowling around these days that cause that fear response and physiological cascade of hormones arising in the body. That's the fortunate part. The unfortunate part is we have now evolved within society that basic day to day things like a text message, an email, a phone call from a specific person can have that same response. It can activate that same fear pathway, that same nervous system activation as a lion might have hundreds of years ago. So essentially, we live every day now in a state of fear, a fear space that basically is having a constant physiological impact on the body. And this is quite huge for us because previously, maybe you came across a lion every 6 months or a year or so, maybe danger was encountered on such an infrequent level that physiological response wasn't being sustained or felt that often. However, today we live our lives in a society that's primarily fear driven. Social media, all of the stuff on the news, everything is fear orientated. And the thing is, when we are fearful, we are easy to control. We are easy to control because fear keeps people small. It's a constricting energy, it's a constricting emotion that keeps us in our safe space. It keeps us, it's there to function to keep us safe. But because actually today those threats around us are more man-made and self-imposed, actually it does make you wonder what society is doing to us, keeping us in a state of fear. I tend to see when people come through to me that there's several key themes that seem to present themselves regularly. The fear of heartbreak and the fear of rejection. The fear of loneliness. And this is quite tricky because society tells us we need to be strong, independent people. We need to be independent. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to work hard and be productive. However, what our soul yearns for is connection because our soul values love, our soul values support. So it's interesting that society is driving us more down the independence route, whereas actually we just want to be loved a lot of the time. None of us want to be lonely. We actually want to be connected. So fear of loneliness is a huge thing that I see often. And to be honest with you, if I actually think back to my greatest fear when I began exploring all of this work within my own life, fear of loneliness was my greatest fear. There's also the fear of failure. The fear of not fulfilling our potential, the fear of our potential not being fully seen. And sometimes that fear of failure prevents us from trying at all. And there definitely is a sense that, we have one life, we have one precious life to live, we need to make it count. And that in itself puts a lot of pressure on us to actually show up and to continually be productive, to continually be striving for success. But sometimes actually failure is our biggest teacher. It teaches us the biggest lessons. And we often don't discuss that in society. We often don't discuss that. And if you talk to some of the most successful entrepreneurs and business people in the world today, it's actually their biggest failures that taught them to be the most successful people that they are today. They learned from those failures. So when you actually look at all of these elements, maybe our greatest fears aren't as bad as we perceive them to be. And that's what I tend to say to people with regard to journeying with processing fear. It's actually identifying what your greatest fear is. So, what I recommend doing is sitting and having a little journaling session. What are you most fearful of? What are you most fearful of? Keep going deeper and deeper into that. Really tease it out for yourself. Maybe seek some support with a friend or a therapist or an energy worker like myself to really go deep into what your greatest fear is. Now, it's quite interesting because fear is often linked to not allowing a whole story or scenario to unfold in your head, because the restriction comes in when you begin to feel the fear. You're like, I'm not even going to go there. I'm not looking at that. So actually, we don't allow it to unfold. Our monkey mind gets in the way because actually, if we allowed everything to unfold in our mind, what is the worst case scenario that could actually be associated with this greatest fear? What is the conclusion of the fear that you have? Just speak it all out. Get it all out. Fully explore it, every single little avenue, the worst case scenario. And sometimes when we actually go into that space, we identify what our greatest fear is, and we get to the end of the line by exploring what it actually might look like if it were to come to fruition. It's actually not as bad as we think it might be. Sometimes when we actually do it and we work through it all, we can actually sit with ourselves and be like, actually, I might be able to handle that. I actually might be able to handle that. I actually might have the strength to do that. And that's really powerful. That's really empowering to actually do that, because if your fear of failure is blocking you from achieving your wildest and most beautiful dreams of success, perhaps you want to start a business or go down that line, but fear is blocking you, and you work it all out. You go down that journey. You look at what the worst case scenario will be, that perhaps the business will fail, but at least you gave it a try. What if that business actually becomes the most successful, beautiful, flourishing business that is out there? Nobody else has your skills and abilities to communicate with the world what you want to communicate. So it's important to really delve deep into our fears, because they could be blocking us from some of the most beautiful and magical experiences in this lifetime that are yet to unfold. Now, fear is really interesting because it's often a representation of the parts of ourselves that feel unsafe, that don't feel secure. Now, that can be from our own life experiences in which actually we physically didn't feel safe. Maybe mentally or emotionally we didn't feel safe. Perhaps energetically we did not feel safe. But it can also be inherited from our familial line. And whether our family carry fears, oftentimes a lot of the fear we hold in the body, unfortunately, has actually been inherited. It's been inherited, it's been handed down to us. It has been handed down to us. And a lot of the fears that we hold in the body, perhaps they're replicas, or perhaps they're playing out in the same fashion, Perhaps you had a father or a mother who had a business themselves that failed. And that fear was so great inside of them, but perhaps they carry shame because they don't know how to process or look at the lessons that came from that failing business. So instead, you've inherited that you shouldn't start a business because it's automatically going to fail. That fear is then inherited. and passed down to you that prevents you from taking that leap then with your own business. And this is just one example of many, many, many things that I see coming through the door. But it's important to actually identify, is this something that's been inherited in the family line? And is this something that's limiting my journey in life? Am I walking in the energetic shoes of fear that have literally been taken off someone else's feet and put down in my path? Have I put those shoes on that have a life of their own? Those shoes are walking down a path that I do not want to follow. Perhaps you're walking straight ahead, but actually you're yearning to take a right turn. Those shoes won't let you do that because actually they have a trodden and well-known path, and it's fear-driven. It's from projections of all of these things that came down the line before you, you know? And sometimes it's really important to identify actually what parts of myself don't feel safe. Where am I lacking security? And this again all comes down to the root chakra. Safety and security, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What are the basic requirements to live a life in this physical world? And safety and security is pretty much one of the highest requirements. Do you feel safe? Do you feel secure? It's really interesting with regard to our journey with safety, because oftentimes the journey starts internally. And finding a sense of safety within is the key first step. When we can find safety within our life, within our body, that we can hold ourselves in a sense of safety, we then hopefully begin to attract in or draw in the energy of safety in some of our relational lives. What's quite interesting is actually some wounds we first need to heal internally. Actually, most wounds we need to heal internally first. But some of our wounding is relational. So when we obtain our sense of safety, actually the next step is to heal within relation to other people, to find safety where there's wounds in relation to others. And again, it's about going to that space in which we feel wounded. Maybe it's a fear of rejection when it's actually relational. And offering those earlier versions of ourselves compassion for our behaviors, for our actions. And hopefully, when we are on this journey with what safety looks like, and we've leaned into actually exploring those themes within our relational life, you'll be doing that with someone else that is aware of their own wounding also. So actually, they'll be exploring what safety looks like as well. And you can both journey with that together. It can be tricky when we're doing that as a solo act in a relationship set. And you have to keep in mind that all parts of our being, this applies to all parts of our being. Every part of our being is affected by this. Do you feel physically safe? Do you feel mentally and emotionally safe? Do you feel energetically safe? And sometimes when we grow up, perhaps our family members didn't know how to hold you in safety. They didn't know what that looked like themselves because they hadn't received that themselves. Perhaps you approached your father or your mother and expressed emotions that they weren't comfortable holding or seeing. You then learned that actually it's not safe to be emotionally available in this home. And then you carry that through your life, and it disrupts your future romantic relationships and friendships because there's a deep fear of being vulnerable, of being fully seen in an emotional space, because actually someone in your family line couldn't hold that safe space for you when you came to them when you were younger. So it's important to identify those younger, beautiful versions of ourselves that actually didn't feel safe. The journey with fear is very interesting because actually, for a lot of my life, I didn't realize I held any fear. I was actually so blind to it because I was so detached from my body. I didn't actually know what fear felt like. It was just a normal feeling for me? And we all carry immense fear. We all do it. But it's interesting because sometimes a huge life event will be the catalyst to begin exploring these things. And you have to keep in mind, we're like onions as well. So perhaps you might identify at one stage on your journey, oh my God, I hold fear in my body, which it could be completely foreign to you, you know? And once you begin to peel back the layers, the fear gets deeper and deeper. There's different facets of fear. Perhaps there's one thing that keeps representing itself, but you're looking at it from a different angle every time. And, even as someone who's been on a journey for a long time and who has met people on journeys that for the majority of their life, it's really, really interesting to see they still journey with fear. They still journey with that, but it's just different facets of it. So every time a little layer of the onion peels back, a new layer presents itself. And perhaps it's just a different facet or element of the fear. So as I say that, I know that in my subconscious mind, there are fears that are yet to be explored. But I am dedicating to unearthing that. I'm dedicating to go deep into that shadow space and to find those fears and to shed light on what elements of myself I don't feel safe within and offer myself a sense of safety within that. Can you provide safety for yourself to feel emotions, for yourself to be vulnerable? Can you provide all those things for yourself? Without needing to look anywhere, without needing to look to anybody else? Can you provide them for yourself? And when I journeyed with loneliness myself, my fear of being alone after a very long term relationship breakdown, when all of my friends were in relationships, I really journeyed with that because I was like, I am fiercely independent. I want to be independent. But I was yearning for connection. But my fear of being alone was great. It was really great. And I think it probably came off the back of the fact my parents had met when they were only teenagers and they've never been out of each other's sights. They don't know what it's like to be alone, you know? And there's probably a fear there of actually what would happen if one of us wasn't here, you know? And it's quite interesting because actually, the more comfortable I became with doing things by myself, there is a beautiful healing energy in that. I'm very happy in my own company, very happy to be alone, you know? And I think that will make for a beautiful union down the line because actually, I don't need for my partner to fulfill that element of my being. Quite happy to be in union with somebody, but I'm also happy to hold my own space too, which is a little gift that I've given myself by providing safety for myself. I went back to the points in my lifetime where I felt, oh my God, was little Tony at that time held in safety? And if I didn't feel that that was the case, I then reclaimed that version of myself, that little Tony. I asked him to come back to me and I told him I would keep him safe from now on. And that was a beautiful journey on multiple occasions. I've reclaimed very many parts of myself. There are multiple little Tonys that needed to come back to me from various different situations within schooling, after being bullied, all of these situations in which fear was imposed upon me. I needed to go back and reclaim those parts of my soul, reclaim those parts of myself, and offer myself safety in those times. So, what I would love to do now is actually just bring you on a little bit of a meditation to meet a previous version of yourself that didn't feel safe and to reclaim that part of you. So, what I'd love for you to do before you settle into this meditation is to actually sit and really contemplate what your greatest fear is. What your greatest fear is out of everything, out of absolutely everything. What is your greatest fear? And we're going to journey back and actually meet that younger version of yourself in which that fear became alive in you We're going to do that now. So just take some time to journal, perhaps pause this and just contemplate that element before we journey into this lovely meditation together. So I want you to close your eyes. I want you to come fully into your body. Coming out of the headspace where we spend much of our day and coming back into the body. Just calling the energy from your head, from your mind, from your brain, down through the body. Imagine it moving through the head and the throat, moving down to the chest and the arms, the tummy, into the pelvis and the hips, the thighs, the knees, the calves and the shins, and into the feet. Feel the energy move down, your awareness moving down from your head and really settling back into the body, coming back into the body. Now I want you to begin to imagine yourself on a beautiful beach and hearing the waves lap away beside you. Feeling your feet and your toes in the sand. That beautiful cool breeze wash over your face. Beautiful blue skies overhead. Lovely, lovely sense of safety on the beach. Connected with nature, at one with nature. And I want you to imagine a beautiful light beginning to form around the body, a beautiful blue energy, a little protective bubble. And this protection is to keep you safe. It's to make you feel safe when we do the next part of this journey together. That blue bubble of light is going to protect you. Protect you from any fear, any situations, any circumstances that you find yourself in. We're going to go back to this space as the observer only. We're not going to relive any wounding. And we're fully protected. In the distance, I want you to become aware of a cave that's present. And I want you to begin moving your way there. Every footstep on the beach, the sand between the toes. I want you to begin becoming really curious about what's in the cave. As you make your way to the entrance of the cave, just become aware that we're journeying into the root chakra. Take a step forward. One by one, I want you to enter into the mouth of the cave. As you journey into the root chakra in this space, I want you to take note of what it feels like. Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it light? Is it dark? And this is the place where we hold our fears. This is the place where we hold our fears. And as you move into this cave even deeper, I want you to call forward the beautiful young version of yourself that holds your greatest fear. And see if they'll come out from the shadows. Perhaps they're scared. Just say to them, look at the light and the safety that surrounds me. I'm here to protect you now. And I want you to take note of the age. What age are you? Just allow that knowing to come to your mind. And ask that younger version of yourself to give you a memory. What memories come to mind that are linked to your greatest fears? Just give yourself a moment to allow the memory to unfold. The time in which you inherited that fear. Now, after reliving that memory, just look at that beautiful younger version of yourself with the most beautiful and soft energy of compassion. That they had to experience whatever wounding that occurred at that time. And just ask them, are you ready to come back to me? Are you ready for us to team up now? Can we do this together? I miss you. Just saying I can provide safety for you now. Just reach your hand out and see if they'll come and take it. Welcome them into that beautiful shroud of light, that blue energy that surrounds your body. Welcome them in to that beautiful space. Allow that light to completely surround you both. And just asking that beautiful younger version of yourself, what do you need me to do to support you now? What can I do to provide you with safety and honor you as part of my beautiful existence? Just asking them to come with you back to the light now. Ask them to take your hand. Perhaps maybe they want to cuddle. Maybe they'll let you hold them. Or maybe they just want to stand beside you. Whatever they feel comfortable with. And just guide them back into the light. Out through the mouth of the cave. And as you walk out, let that light flood down upon the two of you. Ready to face the world together. ready to tackle your greatest fear together. And just calling that united energy back to the body now. Back to where you're sitting. Call your soul and that beautiful little version of yourself back to be with you. Coming back to the body. Just feeling that presence of that younger version of yourself. Ready to tackle the greatest fear together. Just slowly wiggling your fingers and toes. And just slowly opening your eyes. Coming back into the space when you're ready. And you know, after doing this lovely little meditation, meeting that beautiful version of yourself, it might be good to journal now about what you experienced. Maybe the memories that came up with regard to your greatest fear. Just have a little think about how it's contributed to your journey to get here so far, and how you can honor that beautiful younger version of yourself moving forward. Be really gentle with yourself in the days after doing a meditation like this. And just treat yourself to the little gorgeous treats, the little tokens of love that beautiful version of yourself would have appreciated when you were younger. And really mind your heart. From my heart to yours, Dr. Anthony.